발표는 싱가포르 국립대의 김혜진 교수님이 되겠습니다. 자, 여러분 박수로 환영해 주시기 바랍니다.
First, I would like to thank Professor Lim and the organizers for inviting me to this important event. I'm very happy to be here. Today, my talk will be based on an article that I actually already published in the Journal of Asian Studies. You can find the whole manuscript. In the link I show here. The title is Spoon Theory and the Fall of a Populist Princess. But today I was not so sure who will be today's audience and which part I have to focus on for today's topics. So since each of us has a very short time, only 20 minutes. So since I'm the second speaker, and already 1 year passed after the candlelight movement started. So let us go back to maybe some basic questions. What was the catalyst for the candlelight movement? What big picture are we able to see from the continual candlelight movement taking place every cold weekend last winter? Why were so many Koreans from young infants, even 1 year old, infant, baby, to senior citizens, couples holding, their hands together and gathering together without any violence? So my talk today will not be based on any data or statistics. Rather than that, I will take a more sociological and anthropological approach. And due to the time limit, I will extract just the important points from my article. I would like to speak today about spoon theory. You guys might be actually familiar with the term 수저론. In particular, I think spoon theory is important for understanding the candlelight movement. So this term itself is derived from the English idiom about being born with a silver spoon, and used to classify people according to their inherited privilege. Now, for those familiar with it, spoon theory may be such as a very, hearted buzzword. It has been used especially for talking about entertainers, sort of celebrities. On SNS, Koreans have debated who is a gold spoon and who is a dirt spoon. So, however, the undertone of spoon theory is quite a profound critique. It is about inequality in our society. In particular, it's about inherited wealth inequality. In other words, this term, which is a local response to the global problem of rising wealth inequality, channels anger about inherited wealth and the failure of the political system to rectify it. So we can see these themes in core moments in the candlelight movement. So I think it can help us to understand why so much energy went into the movement. Spoon theory themes can also be seen the events that brought the Park Geun-hye Choi Soon-sil scandal to public attention, as you all might be very familiar with. We should remember that the scandal began with an episode at Ewha Women's University. The school, briefing the scandal, the school planned for a commercial expansion at the time, establishing a special lifelong learning branch, the Future Life University, with the financial backing from the government. This program would accept working people who would like to obtain a university degree, especially in hygiene and beauty care. Students that time expressed their opposition to the move on the grounds that the expansion was against the university's mission, that it could increase tuition fees, and that it would dilute the value of the Ewha name. In response to a protest on campus, about 1,000 armed police cracked down on some 300 students who had carried out a sit-in for 3 days in front of a main administration office. According to the police record, University President Choi Kyung-hee had requested their assistance. Students' anger, of course, soared. Word then spread that Choi Kyung-hee had close connections to Park Geun-hye. At this stage, the issue was not especially large, and the episode might have remained one of many student-university conflicts which appear regularly in Korean society. Then, in the context of speculation about contracts between the Ewha president and the Blue House, news emerged of a student suspected of receiving special benefits at the university. A single student launched a complaint that her classmate, Jung Yura, as you can see from the slide, had passed courses with high marks, despite rarely showing up for classes. Angered at university administration, fellow students revealed numerous ways that Chung, daughter of Park's longtime confidant, Choi Sun-sil, was subject to special treatment. She had barely attended lectures and had not submitted assignments, yet her instructors gave her good grades. So something was off. The complaints about Chung's treatment at Ewha cracked the public secrecy surrounding the relationship between Park and Choi Sun-sil. Mass outrages at Ewha scandal encouraged other media organizations and authorities to also set their sights on the Park-Choi relationship. Evidence that had been collected over a few years could now be combined with new information to establish that Choi was the crucial behind-the-scenes player in Park's network and in the administration, that a serious wrongdoing had occurred, including Park allowing Choi to make key state decisions. Chung represented illicit advancement through privilege. She even flaunted her privilege. On Facebook, she had written, blame your own parents if you don't have ability. Money is also capability. So this is a little bit odd statement in a capitalist society. The implication is that success need not come from hard work, dedication, talent, or being useful to others. Rather, inherited privilege is as justified as any individual merit for helping someone advance. The statement sounds more like aristocratic arrogance or a sarcastic critique of contemporary social organization. Even then, the birthright claim in this case is based on not any natural social order. Chung's mother had helped her by directing state officials to violate their duties and by using her links to Park to extract funds from conglomerates. This could scarcely be portrayed as an idea of motherhood. Chung's bizarre logic, though, was not new. So this brings us back to spoon theory. Let me say a little bit more about this phrase. It's a very fascinating, actually, phrase. In the preceding year, similar claims about privilege had circulated in the media. In late 2015, the phrase gold spoon lit up the Korean language internet. The term was a local twist on the English idiom, as I mentioned in the beginning. Opinion makers first attached the term to an inexperienced actress whose famous father had presumably landed for a series of big roles. The entertainment field presented ample material for pondering the benefits of having influential parents. But that time it was lighter, and it was the term itself themselves were used in more popular ways. Between June 2015, when the term gold spoon had not yet been invented, surprisingly, actually, we use this term a lot nowadays, but before June 2015, actually, the term was not invented. And the end of December 2015, the phrase gold and dirt spoons became the most searched term on the social media for the entire year. These terms were the latest in a series of buzzwords used to capture inequality and difficult life conditions. Young people were already described as 880,000 generation, one generation, 88만 원 세대, to capture their ability to survive on less than US $800 per month. What is new in the rhetoric of gold spoons is the focus on inequality as inherited. Spoon theory, formed through contemporary digital culture, I think that also goes to Professor Jose's point. So spawned numerous memes, even a mobile phone application called the gold spoon test. Maybe you guys can check now whether there's still working gold spoon test. One posting that went viral formalized the qualification for each type of spoon. As tables show here, each level of spoon was associated with one's income and wealth. The wealth component is essential to spoon theory because much accumulated wealth is inherited. Such tables invited people to find their own spoon. Bingo games here, based on spoon theory, also made the rounds. In gold spoon bingo, each box has a statement about property, other assets, education, social connections, or lifestyle. If you are the player of this bingo game, can tick 10 of the 25 squares, then he or she qualifies as a gold spoon. Those with more humble origins may find they are more successful at dirt bingo, modeled on the same concept. So here, dirt spoon bingo game and the gold spoon bingo game, which were very popular on social media. So spoon theory could be engaged in a light and fun way, as I explained and then as I showed here, while gossiping about entertainers. But conversations about spoon theory hit serious social issues. These terms started being applied to others in other fields, such as teachers, lawyers, and politicians. So the term gave expressions to obvious concerns about an unfair society in which wealth and social status determine one's life chances. The richest 10% in South Korea now holds 66% of national wealth, while the poorer, half of the population holds only 2%. A greater portion of wealth has been tied up as inherited wealth. Economist Kim Yu-chan calculates that South Korea has the highest proportion of inherited wealth in the world. Part of the reason he finds is that inheritance and gift-giving laws make it easy for wealth to be transmitted from one generation to the next. In fact, Kim maintains that the wealth of one's grandparents may now be a key indicator for one's status. When you talk about spoons, we have to question whose spoon it is. It is not from dad anymore. How hard your parents worked is not important anymore. What spoon your grandfather conveyed to his grandchildren is more important nowadays. So the rise of inherited wealth inequality has been in the making for at least 2 decades in Korea. In the mid-1990s, dissident-turned-president Kim Young-sam began to build a social welfare system. However, even during Kim's administration, the emphasis on welfare declined as a strategy of global economic competition gained around. The IMF led a restructuring that followed the 1997 Asian financial crisis, gave many Koreans a deep sense of economic vulnerability. Large portions of the workforce subsequently became informalized as employers preferred fixed contract workers without union representation or benefits. Even as parents have poured resources into educating their children, returns on schooling have been disappointing for many as youth unemployment has grown. A strong sense has grown that the economy and the education system are now entrenching inequalities. So wealth inequality also became a main theme in politics. In the 2012 presidential election won by Park Geun-hye, inequality was a major issue and was directly addressed by the leading candidates. Park's campaign featured frequent reference to democratization of the economy. Though the meaning of this promise remained vague, one of her 10 pledges was to restore 70% of middle class, 중산층 70% 재건. And she made solving the polarization of society the essential task in pursuing this goal. Departing from previous conservative candidates, she spoke about the need for better welfare protection. Park may have been helped by perception that state assistance was not the real need. The real problem many felt was that working hard was not the leading to advancement. Such an ethos has been crucial to South Korea's rise to a global economic powerhouse and to the material improvements felt by nearly all families from the 1970s to 1990s. Tapping on the desire was the core of the identity Park built for the presidential election. So as the daughter of the president who oversaw growth with social mobility, she drew on those credentials. She ceaselessly made references to her father's presidency, while she also played up old-style fear of communism. One of her main appeals was to fighting barriers to social mobility. In her New Year's address shortly after the election, she stated that in the spirit of symbiosis and coexistence, I will make a society in which everyone lives well. So Park had promised to address the concerns underlying spoon theory. Her administration took little action on economic democratization. Not only did frustration persisted, but Park was herself both a beneficiary of illicit privilege and a perpetuator of it, seen by many as having gained from her personal background. The Park government protest gold spoons declared the headline of a report on business and education policy. Then in October 2016, the dealing involving Choi were uncovered. Park was allowing her advisor to enrich herself, enhance her family members' social status, make public decisions. Park was by then the embodiment of the very problem she had promised to address. Violation of public duty was, of course, what got Park into trouble when in the month of peaceful protest leading up to and beyond the impeachment vote, Koreans demonstrated that they could be exemplary citizens that with no tolerance for such profound breaches of trust. But Park Geun-hye's violations also struck a chord that may have resounded more deeply than simple civic mindedness. Problems of social mobility relate directly to the everybody experiences of ordinary people. South Koreans have a range of symbolic resources for imagining and articulating the importance of access to opportunity. Confucian traditions of examination for public office, the experiences of recent history of growth with relatively little inequality, and spoon theory, which captures the particular concerns of today and makes them easily accessible through humor and apparently light-hearted gossip about entertainers. So once the Ihwa scandal broke and the president was linked to it, so this cultural repository offered a clear way of making sense of Park's background, promises, political policy failures, and misdeed. So it was Jung Yu-ra who had first given a face to the gold spoon concept as a serious political issue. Her claim that her mother was only acting as any parent should prompted indignation. Many had to ask themselves, do I have to feel guilty as a parent because I'm not Choi Soon-sil? The Jung scandal touched a nerve because access to education is a near sacred value in Korea. The education system is the foundation of a stratification system that allows for social mobility. It gives opportunities to families from any background. This view has remained steadfast despite 2 decades of educational advancement becoming increasingly tied to a family's economic status. Public power being used to cheat the system and deny places to others is unacceptable. So as the scandal unfolded, Koreans found themselves confronted with several gold spoons. At the center was Chung and her mother Choi, both of whom gained from the ability of Choi's father to insinuate himself into then-President Trust in the 1970s. Then other figures were also seen in light of their privileged background. These include Lee Jae-yong, the third-generation boss of Samsung. Arrest Lee Jae-yong had been the slogan of one of the candlelight vigils before he was arrested. Then there was Park Geun-hye herself. From the beginning, perhaps spoon theory had been directed at Park Geun-hye. Using games and talking about entertainers offered us to a safe way to mock the president, to talk about the president, or to criticize society. At times, the link was made explicit. In December 2015, Park Geun-hye received the highest number of votes in a gold spoon competition at the youth street performance, which were held by university students. On the surface, and then third one was Lee Jae-yong at the time. On the surface, though, it appeared to be in jest. In reflecting on the Park scandal and the movement, attention should be given not only to political corruption in principle, but also on interpretation in which the actions of these gold spoons have contributed to making life increasingly frustrating for most Koreans. Spoon theory reflects the failure of the economy and the social system to generate opportunities for advancement. So this is a 21st century problem, and countries around the globe, not only Korea, are grappling with its political repercussions. In South Korea, given the history of growth with social mobility and the cultural expectations, such a history has entailed rising wealth inequality is imagined in a particular way. Koreans are struggling to come to terms with a world in which inherited status means so much more than it did a generation ago. Easy to understand and humorous on the surface, spoon theory offers a powerful frame for mobilizing discontent around inequality and corruption. So spoon theory offered a set of symbols and jokes that helped people make sense of these problems and the concrete difficulties they were facing in their lives, and they made spoon theory powerful in helping to motivate the candlelight movement. And I think this will be the good slide as for the last. So wish for the new government, the Moon Jae-in government and the president. So the young people, again, they had a survey, and then the newly coined word that they don't want to hear anymore was, first was Hell-Joseon, and the second was gold spoon and dirt spoon. I think that means a lot, that implies a lot here. Thank you for your time, and then I'll finish my presentation here. Thank you.